feel like Superman and Lois season 3 is already like, it's hard to say that Superman and Lois is surpassing itself, but it kind of like really is. Episode 3 was fantastic and tension filled, and they like hit us in the gut within the first 3 minutes of what, like the recap. Like what you missed was hurtful, and then we went right into Clark's nightmare.
Can I just say, this is the first episode that I've watched live on the night because I had screeners. And when I saw my previously on, I was like, I got it. Because wasn't it me that was complaining about it last season? Because I was like,
Mhm.
there's so many hiatuses and they just throw us right in. I'm like, I need to be led into this. So I know you guys watched it both live. Did they have the previously ons for the premiere in episode 2?
I,
Episode 2, maybe. I don't know about the premiere because they montaged.
Either way, I'm taking it as a win. I fought for what I needed and what I wanted, and it worked.
and there wasn't even any hiatus this time. You didn't need it, but you got it.
I don't know if they're gonna do this every episode. I hope they do, but I was like, oh, thank you.
They let us ride a hand right into that, and like, what an episode! I think if you when we cut out the reviews of every single one of Superman and Us, you'll find me in those first 5 seconds saying, "What an episode!" But this show just does not stop, and I think that's one of the most packed episodes we've ever had. But like, just to pick up where we left off from last week, and then I did mention last week that they try not to reveal the same information more than once. So in order to catch the viewer up, they did that beautiful montage where Lois revealed her diagnosis to a different person, and each line of dialogue was to a different person. So you saw her telling Lana and Kyle and Sarah, you saw her telling her dad, you saw her telling Lucy on the phone, which was a nice little callback to last season as well. But like, considering we only got like a scene or a line of dialogue per each of those scenes, every one of them was so hard hitting, and like, yeah, it just set you up for an emotional roller coaster of an episode. And my goodness, Sam Lynn's face, that kind of broke me in the opening moments.
Yeah,
So what
although
a
I
moment.
was although I was kind of frustrated with him later on in the episode when he kept blaming Clark, and I'm like, Clark can only do so much, Sam. But Clark was just taking it because that's so relatable. Like when your father-in-law is yelling at you, you're just like, I'm not gonna fight back.
And they have like two different personalities too. Sam's like force her to go to the chemo sessions, and Clark's like, I want to have a conversation first. Can we unpack the feelings?
And I loved the like opening with Clark's nightmare. I feel like was so impactful because like he's trying to save her, he's trying to get to her, and he can't find her, he can't get to her, he can't save her, and it was just like, packed a huge punch just right in your heart. Like, just put the arrow right in there.
And Bitsy's screaming, like the one with her, with Lois screaming for Clark. Every time she did it, my heart hurt.
I know.
Please find her, because she is just screaming for her life right now. She needs you.
Yeah, I have a bone to pick with the CW for putting that in all the trailers and making it feel like it was actually a real scene, and then we find out it was a nightmare sequence.
Oh yeah, when the thing was falling on her.
Yeah, the Daily Planet logo, and all you saw was the scene of her reaching for him and him flying towards her. And we got that many, many times throughout that episode as Clark kept going through that in his head. And that first opening scene was so effective because they were in each other's eyesight for so long, but they just kept focusing on him, focusing on her, and it was like he was never going to reach her. And I think that was the whole point, in that this might not be a situation he could save her from. And I think in the first nightmare, he just did, just on time. But then when he had the second nightmare again, he never got to her in time. And I think that really highlighted as fair as how this journey goes on. He's probably going to feel more helpless. And that kind of came across in the episode because he offered to be there for her, but then he had to be Superman. And then he said he was going to like supervise her, but then he couldn't because he had to be Superman. And then Sam got down on him. So I just thought a lot of the family conflict was tied in really, really well to the story. But before we move on from the nightmare, cinematic quality special effects, I tell you, like that's not the kind of stuff you see on the CW. Superman movies have not had that good special effects. I love it when they treat us to moments like this, because that wasn't like, they could have had any kind of nightmare where Lois felt helpless, but my goodness, they went all out in that one just to really like drive it home. But yeah, I feel like just the whole Clark feeling helpless, and then that played in really well to Lois kind of avoiding her chemo treatments so she could follow the story with Chrissy. I mean, like we said last week, that you'd have to see how Lois tries to balance being a reporter with being a mom, with being a person suffering through an illness, trying to get better. And I think this episode really highlighted that, particularly because Lois was kind of avoiding it because she didn't want it to become real. And she teased that in her dialogue last week when she said she wasn't ready for everything to change. And yeah, it was a very effective use of like for using like an episodic story to tie into the overall arc really, really well. And I thought it was a very Lois thing to do. And yeah, I can't fault that from a character standpoint. It was really, really nice seeing her avoid that so that she could do the right thing in the end.
Interesting that you said episodic, because this episode does feel very effective as like a standalone a little bit. Like it's the story it tells at the forefront about Lois is like just so rich and well done and just a great singular hour of television. And I really loved the way that Bitsy played this whole story. There's so much like vulnerability and innocence and so much that Lois wasn't communicating, but you could tell like Bitsy had that in the back of her mind as she's like, we're getting frustrated with Lois, right? Like we're frustrated, like, girl, you know what you need to do and you just keep pretending like you forgot, but we know you're avoiding it. And it's like a whole frustrating situation that I'm sure hits home for a lot of people. But the way that she played it, I can't even describe what she made me feel, because it was just subtle. And I don't know, can you guys put it into words? Because I like the whole time I'm watching Bitsy, I'm like, how are you doing this?
I would describe this as like a tea kettle episode, right? Where you start, it's the water's boiling, and as we get further into the episode, it just starts screaming because it's ready. Like I felt like for Bitsy, the way she performed it, her snap moment is when after all of the drama, but like it's like you really start seeing the climax of that when she is by herself in the waiting room. Is that the second or third time? And she has a whole moment where like the sound just is different and what she's seeing is different, and you can tell the stress is getting to her and she just escapes. We just leave because we can't do this. So by the time she gets to her explosion in the kitchen with Clark, who good on him for elevating the voice just a bit. I think anybody else would have been screaming, but he was like, I'm just gonna raise it up just a notch because you scared me. But she gets to still have the emotional weight of the scene, and I like that's because she's the one who does have to go through this. So even though all of us, Clark, the viewing audience, is like, girl, don't chemo, right? Like the scene wasn't about Clark getting expressed how hugely upset he was. He got to say it, but he didn't get to have the emotional arc of the moment she did. And I loved the speech that she got, in which she reminded him she's the one who's going to have to go through all the treatments. She's the one who might lose her hair. She's the one who's fighting this thing. He's observing her, and it's upsetting, and that's awful. But this is happening to her. So I like that this episode kept it on. This is Lois's fight. Like everybody else can feel how they feel, but at the end of the day, she's got to be the one on like in front.
It was really nice that you did get to see all them differing perspectives on it, because you're right, the whole episode we were kind of watching it like we were Clark, like we were Sam, and just going, Lois, come on now. And then when Bitsy had that moment, just like Clark did, you completely saw her side of the argument. But it was also equally effective in that, like, it made you understand where Clark was coming from and where Sam was coming from, and everyone trying to get Lois to attend her treatment. And Chrissy, by the way, loved the scenes between Lois and Chrissy. And you completely understood where they were coming from. They weren't trying to take over, because a lot of shows could have went down that, like, this is not your struggle, it's my struggle. And while we did get that in the Lois and Clark scene, there was a balance there in that, yeah, she understood why they were all forcing her to do it and stop avoiding it, but also Clark completely understood why she was dragging her feet in the whole thing. There was just an understanding that you don't see on TV so much, and it didn't have to be said or spelled out for you. It was just there in the way Tyler and Bitsy communicated that in that performance, because Clark did come through all stern, like as stern as Clark Kent can go. He didn't go like Superman level stern, but he was stern. It was like, we got to be better than this. Time is running out. You need to attend these treatments. But at the same time, Lois was like, you don't think I know that? It's just, I thought you saw every side of the argument in that little scene, because Clark was under pressure from everyone to look after and stop trusting her so much and that you're leaving her to do it, and then she doesn't do it. But at the same time, Lois is under pressure because she knows that her life's going to change the minute she signs up to this, and that she agrees to have her first treatment, and that she could feel sick and weak, and she doesn't want that either. So I just thought, we always said when Superman and Lois attempted a story like this that we hoped we would see all sides of it, that we hoped that like authentic writing that the Superman and Lois does so well would benefit this story, and we're seeing that already in just this single episode.
That's why it's hard to like, I love how much they've managed to balance everything. For such a like jam-packed episode that was really tense on all angles, it did give you moments of levity and also moments of investigation. Like I love that like the counterweight to this was the teens on a mission together trying to get back Jonathan's truck. And they were kind of doing regular teen things. Like we're at the diner and we're hanging with our friends, and then here comes John's girlfriend, and she doesn't know all the story about what happened last weekend, and all the friends, his brother and his Natalie and Sarah, like, so you didn't tell her the truth. Like it felt very teen drama in a way that's fun. As if, oh, how's this gonna blow up in his face? Because it has to blow up in his face, right?
Yeah.
Michael always says that this show. Do you reference? No, you reference Parenthood. Either way, Friday Night Lights is
Yeah,
something
that's the
that I
other
saw
one.
a lot in this episode. Like especially when I saw the scene of Sarah and Kyle in the back of that truck, I was like, "This is so Friday Night Lights coded." Like the lighting, the setup, the way the camera was like shaking a little bit. I was like, "This." I've never seen a show that can do so many things well. Like it does the family, it does like the teen. Somehow it's also a superhero show. It's like so accessible. And I think this episode, we're gonna praise this episode up and down, but it does feel like this episode is like it's settled into its identity so flawlessly, and it was never more apparent than this episode because, like you said, like the teens were doing their thing. We had intense, vulnerable, like storytelling with Lois and Clark. Like the balance is astounding to me sometimes. And we do need to talk more about the teens though, because Sarah, girl.
Wow, I feel like this episode, like Reed just said, it does balance everything so well. Like the nightmare sequence was out of a Superman movie. The Sarah and Kyle scene was like something out of Friday Night Lights. But I like the way all the storylines kind of like they impacted each other. Yeah, there's differing tones, absolutely. But like the stuff going on with Lana and John Henry Irons about how they're very much acting out of character now, but you can kind of by the end of the episode tie that back into after because of how they heard what Lois was going through, and it explains their behavior. And then you can see the tension continued to mount between Sarah and Lana, and even though Sarah was absolutely pushing Lana's buttons, it then got really, really far, and you were like, "Whoa, Lana, what did you do?" I feel like everything.
Both of them, I was like, what did you both just
Yeah,
do?
exactly.
And the funny thing is that when that scene started, there's something about the actress who plays Sarah that is just like so comforting to me. Like she's so like good in this role. Like the way that she performs feels very much like she's in like some 90s like teen show. Like she could be in Felicity and I would have believed it. Like there's something she's so I really enjoy her as a performer. You know, sometimes me and Sarah, you know, we beef a little bit, and that's fine. So when that scene started, I was like, oh, I love this. She's just like in the kitchen doing homework. It feels so real and grounded. And then the energy just kept stacking up in that scene to my gasp. Like what Sarah said, out of pocket. With Lana, how Lana reacted, out of pocket. I was like, everybody needs to go have a timeout and cool off.
Oh, and I felt it coming because of the way, like you said, traditionally things are set up, especially in the older teen dramas. I was like, she's at the kitchen and her mom's trying to talk to her. I was like, this is not going to end well.
The tea kettle.
Yes,
Starting to whistle.
it was because she like I feel like one of the things that we've always had a problem with Sarah is the inability to see where she's stepped wrong. She believes that she's so mature and she's coming from a point of view that she believes takes in all perspectives, but it doesn't. It takes only in her perspective. And in this one, and you could see it happening earlier in the episode when she was talking to Kyle, because she's like, I don't understand why I'm the one in trouble. I was like, girl, because every other teen in your group told their parent where they're going to be, or their parents are used to them hopping somewhere else and they'll be back home. That's not your and Lana's relationship. It's never been your and Lana's relationship. I don't know why we're confused as we're having lunch with dad. But like when she never wants to be taken to task. So like one of the things I think is going to be interesting about this season is she's also never had to be a child of divorce before. This is like her first few jaunts into it. And so she doesn't understand why her mom doesn't want her to tell her dad what they've been up to in the house. It's like, because they're not married, girl. It's no longer his business what goes down in Lana's house. And I think also, not that Kyle would ever do anything to Lana, at least I don't think so. We'll see if he's possessed in any way at some point. But that she has to protect herself now because they're not together. So like, no, he can't know information about this house. No, he can't have the passcode. No, his place can't be on the security system. And no, he can't know what's going on in my dating life if it exists or it doesn't exist. And Sarah's like, you're being selfish. I don't understand. And and then at the moment I knew she was about to get hit, and I was like, Lana, please subvert what usually happens during this moment, was when she said, that's why dad cheated on you. And I was like, and here comes the slap.
The tension, it beautifully, like you said, the kettle whistle moment. But like, I have to just appreciate just how the tension boiled over throughout the episode for all of the characters, but specifically Lana, because like Sarah should not be sharing personal information with Kyle now, and I completely understand that. But when you go back and watch the scene, she didn't actually say anything other than John Henry Irons installed the security footage, and Lana's probably reading into that a little bit much, so she may perhaps overreacted. And it's the same way that Kyle was clearly fishing for information. Like, that man is not subtle in the slightest, but Lana would usually think about things before reacting, and she reacted all of a sudden. You could clearly see, I don't know whether it was what she learned about Lois, but they're definitely going somewhere with this. Lana had a very bad day. That woman is stressed out, and she did not need that argument in the kitchen at the end of the night. But like, especially now, the fact that at the end of the episode, she was talking to Sarah through that door, and I think we all clocked that woman was not behind that door. And
she was confirmed not in the room, right?
Yeah, because she went to Kyle in the diner.
Yeah, I kind of appreciated that it wasn't like, it was just implied, but I was waiting for Lana to open the door. Because as soon as I saw her leaning on that door, I was like, well, she's not there, Lana. Yeah. She's not there.
That conversation's not going to go well with Kyle either. And it shouldn't. I kind
of love this direction though. Like, I want like a Sarah detour arc where she's not really dealing with what's his name? Jordan. But like, I love when these teen dramas always send like the usually like good girl archetype, and she goes down like a crooked little path, and maybe she hangs out with the wrong people, makes wrong choices, and like I can totally see her moving in with dad now. And dad's dad, he's not Lana. So maybe she can get away with more and steamroll him. But I'm excited to see where this goes with her, because I mean, I've been lobbying for Sarah to do something else.
And it is interesting because she spent a lot of time with Kyle in this back half of season 2, and that's when that kind of encouraged her singing dream. And then, of course, the alternate Kryptonians or the doppelgangers from the Bizarro Earth turned up, and it all went to hell. So it does make you wonder where it'll go, because it feels like they're kind of going back to some of the season 2 dynamics now. So that's why I'm intrigued to see where specifically going with Lana. Is this woman going to be running the town and then suddenly really, really lonely because she's no one in her life? Will that open the door for John Henry Irons? And then that's why I said them two kind of connected on a similar front, because they were very, very sharp as far as their like other halves went when they talked about them, because he was like, yeah, it's sad what's happening with Lois, but she's not my wife. And then I went on, I was like, that was a bit of a strange comment. But then you saw by the end of the episode that he was kind of covering up. He was protecting his heart, because he is sad about what Lois is going through, and of course it'll bring back memories of his Lois and all that happened to her as well. So, and I thought the whole like arc of Natalie wanting to give Lois the watch but him not being happy with it, such a great storyline, and it was developed in such a unique way, because at the start you were like, wait, why are you being so mean? And then by the end of it, you get it. And I think it's kind of the same with Lana, because like, it did kind of tip me out that she was like, oh no, we don't need Kyle installed in that security system, even though the man was literally in her house a few scenes beforehand when Lois was telling them. And you do understand why she didn't want it. But at the same time, you're probably going to see Kyle's side of things of why he was hurt, that he feels like he's cut out of the family now. It's going to be interesting. This show explores things like from a very like authentic family standpoint. And like, even though you can understand why he doesn't live there anymore, that's not his home anymore. But at the same time, should the security system will have him if he needs to get in to see his daughter? So just like with the Lois and Clark things, you do understand all sides of things. And it does feel like they've really turned up the tension now going forward. And considering this was such a contained episode, I can't wait to see how it's kind of blown the lid off a lot of the storylines.
Now, is the divorce final?
I think the ink is dry because Lana's acting like the ink is dry,
Yeah,
and the government
because
knows they are not attached.
if it's not, I feel like it's gonna get ugly, and Kyle's gonna be like, "Here's some custody papers."
I could
Because
see
these
that.
children are still minors, and she just hit one of them, so maybe we're gonna go to divorce court in Superman and Lois season 3.
See, I don't know if for us, that action's gonna be delicious. For them, though, it's gonna be like, Kyle, if you bring that up, she's gonna talk about your drinking habit and what it was like where the girls seeing you on the couch like that. Like,
it'll get ugly.
It'll get ugly real fast. I think that's the thing about watching shows like this as an adult rather than watching them as a teen. Because like I feel like we see more sides of the story now because we're adults. Because I feel like as a teenager, I've probably been annoyed with Sarah, but also being like, you know what? She's blank slate now because Lana did what she did. And now I'm like, she's a little blank slate because of Lana did what she did, but I need Sarah to recognize that you have a hand in the way that you talk to your mom, and it's not cool. But also I think because it adds a layer to what's great about Superman and Lois is it really is written from the perspective of the adults. Like there's a lot of different parts of the storyline. Like, yeah, it bleeds into how the kids feel, but it's also got a perspective of how you don't actually know your parents when you're a kid. So with Sarah, she's like, everything's black and white. And I'm like, there might be a reason why Lana's acting like this. You know your dad is your dad. You don't know your dad is Kyle. So like, yeah. It'll be interesting if Lana's like, there's things about our relationship that you have no idea about. And I'm going to need you to just trust me when I say, don't do these certain things or don't tell your dad these certain things. Because the way he rolled up on her at the office, I was like, this is giving fresh divorcee, but also leave the mayor's office. This is not your business.
It was. And I think that's the thing about Superman and Lois. I've had so many people in my mentions over the last 2 years or whatever, this is turning into CW teen drama. I'm like, no. Superman and Lois is not a teen drama. It's a family drama. It's not Gossip Girl. It's Parenthood. It's Friday Night Lights. So you get to see all sides of things. And just like those shows handle all of their characters better than the likes of teen dramas would handle the parents, Superman and Lois is definitely playing with all of its characters just in such an authentic manner. Superhero stuff will get priority as it goes on, but I'm glad we're getting to sit with the family stuff for now, because at the end of the day, 2 worlds almost merged at the end of last season. Let's see how these characters deal with it for a little while and then let them grow from there. But like, the 3 of us were talking about it as the episode was airing. That's one of the strongest, most consistent episodes just on a complete front. It might not have been as like heartbreaking as the episode beforehand or as memorable as some of the season 1 episodes, but just from an overall standpoint, that episode was a 10 for me because there was it nailed it on all fronts. I'm so excited about every single storyline. I'm so heartbroken over every single storyline. I love the show so much, and I think that episode was one of the best examples of everything coming together on the night.
And we still got the big villain development with what's his name with Clark's blood. Which didn't that happen in Smallville? Didn't someone steal Clark's blood?
Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it happened in Supergirl. They all love the Kryptonian blood.
Was it Lex Luthor's dad had the blood?
I think so.
Didn't at one point Clark's mom work for that guy? What's the man's name?
Lionel,
yeah.
Lionel. That's right. Yes. Yes, they all love the Kryptonian blood. I'm pretty sure every Superman story, Supergirl story, somebody steals the Kryptonian blood so they can make their own monsters. I think this might be what we're going to be doing this season. Spoiler alert. But yeah, like again, Bruno Mannheim's presence felt, even though he's not in the episode. Again, I love this. There's just slowly building towards this villain and whatever his end game goal is. We still are none the wiser, but you're starting to put the pieces together. I will say before we move on, it was nice to get to see what Intergang is all about, because in the comics they are like a weapons deal. They are weapons dealers and black market dealers. And when Lois and Chrissy got locked in that freezer, you saw all the like gadgets they had, like those big Kryptonian blasters that they used on Superman in the final scene. Also a nice full circle moment. I remember when the nightmare scene started, I was like, Lois would not be calling Clark when she needs his help, when she needs Superman help. And then in the final scene, she literally said Superman. I was like, that's my Lois.
I
That's
loved it. I loved it so much.
It's so good.
They're like, one last scream for the road, Bitsy, and then you can have the tea. You can have the honey and lemon you want. But that scene was amazing. I loved how we had a tensionful episode that was very character development centric, but still gave you action. So you have that moment with I'm scared for Clark. Like, we haven't even really gotten down dirty with Bruno yet, and we already had to be saved by John Henry because he was just because of the blasters. But maybe the kids will come in handy, because the kids were doing their thing and in this episode, and Jonathan got to participate. I love how Natalie was like, how long can you hold your breath? And he got to be a part. He got to be a part of the fight scene.
That was such a cleverly shot scene, just him running through and then stopping as someone's about to hit him. Natalie lifts them up, running through again. Jordan sweeps him to the side. That was such a clever scene. But I know that one of the points of Superman at Lois season 3 is that Jonathan's going to get more involved in the super end of it, because we never get to see that. And if it's more like that, that's just so much fun. It does make you wonder how far they can go. But like, Lois is at the heart of all the super storylines. We can put a human in there once in a while and it'll work out fine. So I can't wait to see more of Jonathan. And I just love the teens when they're working together. They might take Sarah out of it for a while now that she's got her own things going on. And that's okay, because
that feels right. It feels right.
That character could do with her own time.
She needs to think about what she did.
Definitely.
I do think it'd be good for her to be with her dad, though. Like, she and Mama shouldn't be in the house together right now. The hit was a lot, so we need to be away from Mom.
It's like it's like season 2 OC when Marissa moved in with her dad, and her dad did not know what to do with her. And Julie was like, where is she? And he's like, I don't know, she's fine, I guess.
Oh no, that's definitely gonna be Kyle.